My friends, it's Monday, April 3rd, and I have one more instrument that's been sitting on the shelf that I'm going to complete before I take a hiatus from working on instruments. And it's a Fender guitar. It came to me just like this, unstrung. I know they want it set up to play, so that's what we're going to do, and I'll show you how I do that right after this. Hello my friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. Yes, I am going to be taking a hiatus. Going to take about 2 months or so to just do farm chores here and just quit working on instruments. Now, having said that, I will actually still be working on instruments, but only if someone brings them and stays at our rental properties. We have 2 rental retreats here on the farm. We have a large house that's really a 2-bedroom house that you can rent, and while you rent it and while you stay, I will fix your instruments and or set them up, repair them, whatever needs to be done. And we also have an apartment that you can rent. Now, of course, the apartment's a little bit cheaper, but it's like an efficiency apartment. It pretty much has everything you need to stay long term if you need to stay longer. Anyway, you can rent those apartments at my website, www.rosastringworks.com. Right now, we're focused on this Fender, and this, like I said, is the last one before I take that hiatus. So let's turn the camera down here and see what our first step is. Off camera, I check these. I always check these kinds of things, and these are loose, and you don't want them loose. They're not all loose, just like these top 2 are loose, probably from, leaning over and falling and hitting them. So anyway, I'm going to just tighten up these little screws right here. Fortunately, they're not stripped. I'll just check all of them. Okay, those top 2 were the only 2 that were real loose, and they were pretty darn loose. Now on this side, because those were loose, I'm also going to check to see if these are tight. So take a little 10 millimeter, yep, that's kind of loose too. So this one's probably loose also, yep, it's kind of loose too. I'll just check the rest of them. You just want them snug, you don't want them crazy tight. Okay, they're all good. Okay, so that's good. Now the nut was loose on this also, and it was just laying in the case. And so, because of that, I want to make sure that all the glue is off this. So I'll just take and scrape the back edge of it here and make sure there's no glue on it. And in this case, I'm going to scrape the glue off the bottom too. This is just a plastic nut, but quite honestly, that's all you need. The nut doesn't have much to do with your sound. I know a lot of people will argue that, but I truly believe that in a blind test, there's not a single person out there that's going to hear the difference. They'll tell you they will, but not in a blind test. I don't think they can prove it. Check and see if there's glue on the front here, and make sure there's not, and just make sure there's just no creeping crud in there. Okay, that should go back in there really nice. It does. It fits up nice and snug. And I'm just going to use a little bit of this super phatic glue to glue this. I could use a lot of different glues on this. It doesn't really make too much difference, I don't think. Put a little bit here on the back edge there. This stuff dries pretty fast, so it's a good glue for this purpose. And just making sure I got her in there. Okay, while that's drying, I think I'll turn my attention to a couple of other things. I know it's going to need a fret leveling. I can see quite a few worn frets there. But before I even get to that, I think I'm just going to pull all these pins out and go ahead and bevel the ends of the pins. These pins are really chewed up, by the way. I mean, like really chewed up. These here are already beveled. All these big ones are already beveled, so I don't really have to do those. This white one here is not. So Actually, don't really need to do too much there. I think I'm going to run this reamer down through here and just ream these holes just a little tiny bit because they're pretty chewed up, and I think this will make it better. Looking for cracks in this too because it's pretty chowdered up. This saddle's pretty loose. I don't like that, but I don't know. I may have to try to make a new saddle because that saddle's pretty darn loose, and that's usually just invitation for breaking the bridge. So I'll look into that too. Well, I found a saddle in stock comparable to this particular saddle, and I thought I'd save the customer some money here and just put that in there. It fit almost to a T. I had to run it through my thickness sander just a little bit. So I think we're good there. Now we'll do a light fret dressing on this. There are a few slightly worn frets. I'm just going to feel it here. I can feel it grabbing in a place or two. I'm going to look down it because I'm not sure if it's flat. There may be a problem. I don't know. This neck angle may be an issue, but I think we'll probably be able to make it work like this. These frets here are high, I can tell. So I'm taking those down a little bit extra because for most people these are just decoration frets anyway. I think that'll do. Get the recrowning file. Okay, that looks pretty darn good. Got some 800 sandpaper here. I'm just going to go over the frets to get rid of any little sharpness there, clean them up, make them look a little shinier, polish them up like. It doesn't take very much with this 800. It does a good job and makes them look real nice and shiny. They don't look like a mirror, but they look shiny. I know we don't want to spend a lot of money on this guitar, so that's why we're doing it as quick as we can and making it as nice a job as we can do as fast as we can do it. And I think that's going to suffice. I will need to scrape this fingerboard here. I have my 12 thousandths single edge razor blades, and there's a link on my website on the products I use page to these in case you want to get some of these. These are the ones I recommend for scraping your fretboard. The 9 thousandths are a little bit too flimsy. There's some pretty good fingernail grooves in here, so we're going to try to get most of that out. Okay, and then after I scrape the fingerboard, then I go back along every fret and clean up all the junk that gets pushed up against the frets. And I do both sides. And now we'll just put a few drops of Be Good oil on this. Doesn't take much. Already got more than I'll need probably. In a recent video, I failed to show putting this on a mandolin, and of course I get told about it if I don't show it, you know. So I wanted to be sure I showed it. It doesn't hurt to put it right here either. There's been a lot of pick damage right there, so put that oil on that to kind of make that look better, and then we'll put a little bit of the oil here on the bridge. The bridge is pretty beat up and chowdered up too. I think that's going to do it. Might wipe this peg head off a little bit. It's pretty nasty looking. That's about as good as we need to do, I think. Let's go ahead and start putting the strings on this, and he provided the strings, so we'll just put those on there. Actually, no, we won't, because there's only 2 strings. So we won't use the strings. We'll just, because these are mediums, and I'm going to put lights on this anyway. I think that's a better choice. All right, I'm using the J16, the Diodario. These are phosphor bronze. This peg here is the only one that's not beveled, so I'm just going to bevel it here with a file. Instead of going to the grinder, it just works just as well for one peg. That should work. There's a string left on here that I'm trying to get off, and it's not wanting to cooperate because it's tight against the peg. It's probably been on there a long time, I would imagine. It was run through the hole like 3 times, 2 or 3 times. That's just not a good way to do a string. There, I got it. It was just wrapped around that really tight. Well, that was 7 minutes from the time I started to the time I got all the strings on there. Now that also included getting that one off there that was left on that post. Taking that out, it was less than 6 minutes, I think. Anyway, that wasn't bad. I don't know where the action's at yet, and probably don't need to check it till I get the tension on there, but I thought I'll just get a rough idea. Since I replaced the saddle, it looks like it's going to be pretty good. Now, unless it pulls way up. It's pretty low right now, but it could pull way up. So let's go ahead and get her tuned up, and let's see how the action is. Now it's up to tension, so let's check the action officially here and see where we're at. It's back up there a little bit now. I'm going to say 115 on that side. And we're only 80 on this side, so really we're perfect on this side. And so that's not terrible. Let me check the intonation. I'll let you see the tuner here Hopefully you can see it too. Not too bad. Not too bad. Really pretty close. Very close for just a straight bridge. I'm going to go ahead and take this side down. It's 25 thousandths too tall. It's at 115 thousandths, about 50 thousandths off of this side down to nothing. We should be good. So I think I'll be a little conservative. I think I'll take 40 thousandths down to nothing, and we should be plenty good to go. I'll do that and we'll be right back. So since I'm taking 40 thousandths off the base side, I just put a little black mark there, and then I'll just scratch the 40 thousandths here. And there's the 40 thousandths. So basically I take this side off and don't touch this side. So it's really, you just kind of push it in and make this side touch at the same time this side goes, touches. That's really all there is to it on the sander, and I'll use a disc sander for this. After doing that, then I also take and knock off the corners, because these edges get pretty sharp and they can catch on stuff going down in the slot. So I just so slightly knock them off. You don't have to take a lot of time doing this, and I do the ends too, just to get rid of that little sharpness, because you can for sure tell the difference when you're pushing them down in the slot. If that little sharp thing's on there, it'll sure grab and catch. And then you can feel it like this, and if you feel any sharpness, you need to get rid of it. That's pretty good. And then we'll just slide it right back into place and put her down in there, and we should be good to go. I won't make you watch me put the strings back on, but we'll play it for you here in just a minute. Alright, I got the strings back on it up to pitch. I'm just double checking this up here, and it's still just a teeny tiny bit high on all the strings, so I'm just going to go ahead and take them down a little bit. Doesn't take much to do it. That's just about right. It could probably go a fuzz lower, but if you go too far, then you've gone too far. So I think I'll just leave it right there. That's pretty close. It's right on the edge, but it can go a little bit lower. It's right there. You can't even see it move. This one's barely high, but I might as well do it too. The other thing about doing this is getting the angle right. I can tell just when you look down in these slots, and you should look at your own slots, you'll see the rub marks, the dark marks, and that's where the string is riding. So I like to see that mark either go all the way the full length of that, or at least on the back edge, because if it's on the front edge, you get problems. Best if you keep them all at pitch while you're doing this too. Otherwise you can get really fooled because the tension changes a lot of things. looks pretty good. I don't think I'm going to go much further than that. Perfect. Right on the money. That's about as good as it needs to be done, as quick as I could do it. That is exactly 1 hour's work. I mean, exactly, to the minute. So that's not too bad for everything I did there. Well, it looks real good. It's real sound guitar. I think everything's fine. Making sure it doesn't buzz. Well, if you've enjoyed my 1 hour setup, there you go. That's how I do it, and that included everything. We tightened up the tuning keys. We got the strings that were still stuck on the tuners off. We put on new strings. We cleaned up the nut slot and put the nut back in there. We filed the nut down. We leveled, recrowned all the frets, polished the frets, cleaned in between the frets, and made a new saddle, and even worked on the pins a little bit there and the pin holes. Did all of that in exactly 1 hour. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And if you would, please be sure that you're subscribed. Thank you so very much. We'll see you next time.